So one thing we notice when we watch basketball players move, whether they have the ball, they're kind of dribbling, trying to get past somebody, whether they're playing defense, whatever it may be, is that this happens a lot. And if you don't have the ability, the ankle mobility to hit these positions, chances are you're not going to perform your best. Plus, it's going to cause a lot of problems upstream in terms of jumper's knee, in terms of hip and lower back issues. And there are stats on this that show that less or kind of red flag numbers for ankle mobility or dorsiflexion mobility here can actually cause a ton of problems upstream. Chances are, if you have knee pain as a hooper, one of the problems causing this is your inability to do this, right? And that's expected. Pretty much every single hooper I work with has a tough time doing that. For whatever reason, most hoopers have absolutely terrible ankle dorsiflexion mobility. So we're gonna work on that. We're gonna make sure that you're hitting new positions, that you're able to feel shiftier than ever, and that you're able to limit the problems in your knee, your hip, your back, everything upstream. All right, let's check that out. So first step, shoes, socks. If you're comfortable with that, showing the dogs, take them off. I like to do it this way so there's no restriction, so we can get full range of motion, and just so we can get some kind of sensory input, we call it, back in our foot, right? And get our feet moving again. Second step here, or first real step, is gonna be some soft tissue release. So preferably if you have somebody to do some soft tissue release, some massage, some cupping, some scraping on the posterior side of your leg, your calf, right? We're gonna do that. Most people don't have that at their disposal. So simple foam roller, lacrosse ball, really anything that can kind of open up this area is good. And again, this isn't really a required step, but I like doing some sort of soft tissue work here because we all know the feeling after we foam roll, after we get maybe a massage, where we just feel very loose. And that's because it does help us get into new ranges of motion. It kind of creates some relaxation in here, and that's gonna help us get into further angles, all right, with that ankle dorsiflexion, we call it. So if you wanna go like 5 minutes here, obviously I'm gonna accelerate this process where you really just kind of knock out these parts of the lower leg, all right? Obviously this should hurt a little bit. Make sure that you're hitting those areas that are really tense and tight. Then we're moving on to the real work. Most of you guys will probably skip to this, but I would encourage you to do that with some type of loaded ankle mobility. And this will be kind of like holding a stretch with some weight. So check it out. So preferably here we have some sort of weight. I have a kettlebell here. I'm sure you can find literally anything, whether you just stack up like a bunch of books in a backpack and put it on you, something that's going to help you force your ankle into new ranges of motion. So what I mean by that is, for example, I have the kettlebell here. I'm going to sink into it, and I can feel this really kind of pushing that knee over the toe further. Main key here is that this heel, so the heel that we're really targeting, stays down, and I'm getting all my range of motion, all right, with that full foot on the ground. From here, I usually like to hold about 45 seconds. So this is gonna be kind of your stretch, all right? It's gonna be a little bit tougher than the average stretch because it's loaded, because we have something that's literally forcing it into new ranges of motion. All right, I like to kind of support it here. And again, we're holding this for a longer period of time, usually about 45 seconds. So next step here, we've kind of opened up that area, we've stretched it a little bit. One of the main problems with just stretching and calling it a day is that we get into these newer ranges of motion, so by the end of that stretch you're like, oh wow, probably never been here with my ankle before, but we're not strong in those positions. We don't know how to control those positions. So what comes next usually is some active range of motion. So for example here, I like to go with heel reaches. So what that means is I'm starting full foot on the ground here. Again, don't want that heel coming off the ground, and I'm reaching forward to get this heel as far as I can forward. What that does, if you look at it from this angle, is make sure that I'm getting into that new range of motion here. But now since I'm upright, I have to control this. I feel kind of myself straining at the end, and I have to bring it back. So this is now strengthening that new range of motion. I got there with the first two steps. Now I have to control it at the end, get strong there, and bring it back up. So I usually go about 8 reps here, 3 sets, holding it at the end. You should feel some tension, even kind of pressing your foot into the ground here, and then back up. So I'm there, I'm slow, 1, 2, back up, go 8, obviously switch the other way, go 8, usually about 3 sets there. So after we get kind of some isolated strength in, I want to incorporate this into an actual movement. So for me, what I like to do is getting into kind of a crawling position here, taking a step and making sure that this full foot stays on the ground as long as possible. All right, when I just can't do that anymore, when the heel kind of pops off the ground naturally, get into that next step. All right, full foot on the ground, get into that next step. So if you see me doing it from this angle, what you'll notice is, again, I'm getting into that full range of motion. And this is kind of like what we would see when we're moving on the court, where I'm here and then I project myself into the next step. All right, rolling over, then projecting myself into the next step. So now we're starting to incorporate these new ranges of motion into some actual movement. Then lastly here, I want you to apply this to what it would actually look like in a game, on the court, when we're moving with a basketball. So I would suggest you go kind of freestyle drops here. So maybe pretend like you have the ball, maybe you actually do have a ball, and now you're getting into these new ranges of motion here. Maybe I drop, maybe I get into a little crossover, and just trying to feel those new ranges of motion out. I usually go about 2 to 3 sets of 30 seconds here. So if you go through this, it shouldn't take you any more than 5 to 10 minutes. All right, you can shorten some of the reps if you feel like maybe one is way more restricted than the other, which happens a lot, previous injuries, whatever it may be, just how you move, you can kind of expand those reps a little bit. Maybe you go 12 reps on here, 8 reps on here, but keep it pretty equal. Try to attack this, if not every day, maybe 3 to 4 days a week. You're gonna start seeing results, especially if you start to integrate this before your basketball training sessions, maybe some stuff you do in the weight room. I promise you, you're gonna feel this difference in how you move and also how the pain is feeling. I feel like a lot of players will benefit from this, not only in their ankles, but also up the chain. Again, this is a big red flag for knee injuries, so who knows? This could be the missing link for your jumper's knee or whatever is happening upstream. Try it out, let me know what you think. As always, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at ByAnyMeansBasketball. Until next time.